Jackson Moore never believed in ghosts. He joked about haunted buildings, scary stories, all of it. But that changed the night he closed up Redwood Hardware, a small old store on the edge of Flagstaff, Arizona, a store with a history no one talked about. It was a little after 12:40 a.m. when he began shutting down the lights. His manager had begged him to work overtime because the store's inventory system crashed earlier that day. It was an old building, a creaky, dusty place with aisles that smelled like metal and old lumber. But Jackson didn't mind. It was quiet. Too quiet. As he scanned out the last aisle, the overhead lights flickered. He sighed. "Not tonight, man. Come on." But the light steadied again. He continued counting boxes on the shelf when something caught his attention, a faint reflection in the metal of a toolbox. Behind him, a shape, tall, still, watching. He spun around. Nothing there. He let out a shaky laugh. "I'm tired, that's it." Jackson clicked off the aisle lights and continued his closing routine. He made it to the main counter when he heard it. Clink. Something metal tapped against the floor at the far end of the store. He turned. A wrench lay in the middle of the aisle, but he hadn't dropped it. Jackson swallowed hard and walked over. He picked it up. It was cold. Not normal cold, like ice, like it had been sitting in a freezer. He placed it back on the shelf. As he walked away, clink, he froze. The wrench was back on the floor. "Nope, nope, not happening," he muttered, backing away. He turned off another row of lights and headed for the storage room. He needed to finish logging the last shipment before he could leave. He unlocked the heavy door and stepped inside. The storage room was quiet until he noticed the temperature. His breath fogged in front of him. Seriously? The heater's off again? He rubbed his arms and approached the back wall where the boxes were stacked. As he scanned barcodes, he heard a soft whisper behind him. Barely audible, like someone exhaling words. "Jackson?" He turned, slowly. No one there. The hairs on his neck rose. "This isn't funny," he said, voice cracking. He moved toward the door, but the door was closing, slowly, as if pushed by an invisible hand. He lunged, but it slammed shut with a deafening bang just as he grabbed the handle. Locked. He shook it violently. "Open, open!" Something shifted behind him. He turned. The boxes he had stacked earlier were now arranged differently, forming a narrow pathway down the middle of the storage room. A pathway leading to the far corner, where the light didn't reach. "Hell no," he whispered. But the temperature dropped even further. Frost formed along the metal shelves, creeping outward. The air felt thick, heavy, hard to breathe. Then he heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, coming from the dark corner. Jackson pressed himself against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. A shape emerged, at first just a shadow, then darker, taller, its limbs too long, its fingers bending at impossible angles, its face. There was no face, just a stretched, pale surface like soft clay, with a slit where a mouth should be. A slit that began to open, wider, wider, until it split the entire blank face in two. Jackson screamed and threw himself toward the door, slamming his shoulder against it. The creature moved faster, crawling instead of walking, its limbs bending like broken sticks. He rammed the door again. This time it burst open. He sprinted into the store, slamming the storage door shut behind him. He jammed a metal sign against the handle. His breath shook violently as he backed away. The entire store was dark now, except for the emergency lights glowing a dull red. He reached for his phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no service at all. Then the overhead speakers crackled. A voice whispered through them, not human, slow, wet-sounding. Jackson? He dropped the phone and ran. Down the main aisle, past the cleaning supplies, past the lumber rack. All the lights shut off behind him in a wave. Pop, pop, pop. One by one, like something was chasing the darkness toward him. He reached the front doors, grabbed the handles, and stopped dead. They were chained shut, wrapped with thick, rusted chains he had never seen before. A thick padlock hung in the middle. What? No, these weren't here. He pulled desperately, but the chains didn't move. Behind him, he heard shelves falling, boxes crashing, something crawling fast across the floor. He ran toward the office. The security monitors flickered to life. The hallway camera showed the storage door bending outward as if something massive was forcing its way through. Another monitor switched on. Camera 3. Jackson's aisle. A tall figure standing exactly where he had been moments ago. Motionless. Camera 4. The cashier counter. The figure again. Closer. Camera 5. The front door. Right behind him. Jackson spun around. Nothing. But he felt breath on the back of his neck. Cold. Slow. Hungry. He ran into the manager's office and slammed the door. He shoved a filing cabinet in front of it, panting and shaking. The room was small, lit by a single buzzing light. He grabbed the phone on the desk. Dead. He picked up a crowbar from the corner. Footsteps echoed outside the office door. Slow, deliberate, heavy. Then, silence. Jackson held the crowbar tight, heart banging against his ribs. The door handle turned. Once, then stopped. The lights went out, all of them. Jackson held his breath. A whisper filled the darkness. Close, right next to his ear. "You're the last employee." He swung the crowbar wildly, hitting the wall. A hand, cold and impossibly long, grabbed his wrist in the dark. His scream echoed through the entire building, then suddenly cut off. The store opened at 9 a.m. the following morning. Customers walked in. The shelves were neat. The lights were bright. Everything looked normal, except for the manager finding a message carved into the wooden office door. "Don't work alone." Jackson Moore was never seen again. The night shift at Harrington Medical Supply in Boulder, Colorado wasn't supposed to be scary. Quiet, boring, maybe lonely, but not frightening. That's what Megan Collins always told herself. She worked as an overnight inventory clerk, logging deliveries, checking stock, and preparing outgoing orders for the next morning. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and the solitude helped her focus. But on this particular night, she felt something different the moment she stepped inside. Cold. Not normal Colorado winter cold, a deeper, heavier cold that seemed to settle inside her chest. She shook it off and swiped her ID card, entering the warehouse. As usual, the huge metal space echoed with the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint rumble of the refrigeration units. Megan set her coffee down and grabbed her clipboard. 6 hours, then home, she whispered. At 12:17 a.m., she heard the first noise. A metallic clang from aisle 14. She froze. That aisle stored surgical carts and stainless steel trays, nothing that should move on its own. Probably a loose rack, she told herself. Still, she walked toward the noise. As she moved deeper into the warehouse, the lights began to flicker overhead. A few bulbs buzzed angrily, giving off short bursts of light like lightning trapped indoors. She reached aisle 14. It was empty. But one of the tall metal trays lay on the floor, perfectly flipped upside down. Not crooked, not fallen, flipped, like someone had lifted it and placed it there. Megan crouched and touched the tray. Warm. Her stomach tightened. "Someone here?" she called out. Silence. She stood up quickly and backed away. It had to be a prank. Maybe one of the day shift workers hid in the warehouse to mess with her. She returned to her station and tried to focus on paperwork. The minutes dragged. 1:03 a.m. She heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, rhythmic, walking along the concrete. Her breath caught. No one should be walking inside the warehouse after hours. All doors were locked from the inside. She turned off her computer monitor to see better in the reflection. From the glass, she could see the faint outline of the aisle behind her. A shadow passed between the shelves. Tall, slow, moving deliberately. Megan whipped around. "Hello? Who's there?" Nothing. But the footsteps continued. She grabbed a small flashlight from her desk and stepped into the main aisle. Her heart thudded against her ribs as she listened. The footsteps stopped. Then a new sound replaced them. Tink, tink, tink. A tapping noise, like metal hitting metal, coming from the far end of the warehouse. Megan slowly walked toward the sound. Her flashlight shook in her hand. As she passed aisle 18, something moved in her peripheral vision. She swung the light around. Nothing. Then her flashlight flickered, and for a split second, she thought she saw someone standing at the end of the aisle. Tall, too tall, shoulders hunched forward, arms hanging unnaturally low. The flashlight cut out completely. Megan stumbled backward. "No, no, come on!" She slammed it against her palm until it flickered back on. The aisle was empty again. Her chest tightened with rising panic. She backed away and returned to her station, breathing heavily. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone to call security. No signal. She walked to the front of the warehouse where signal was usually stronger. Still nothing. Her phone displayed one message she definitely hadn't opened. New video saved, aisle 14. Her heart nearly stopped. She tapped the video. The screen showed the camera facing the exact aisle where she first heard the noise. She saw herself walk into the aisle, pick up the tray, look confused. Then a shadow appeared behind her. Massive, looming. Its long, thin fingers curled around the edge of the shelf. It leaned toward her, only inches from her back. Megan screamed and threw the phone onto the desk. Tears filled her eyes as she covered her mouth. "No, no, that's not real," she whispered. But the phone lit up on its own. Another message. "Basement door, open." Megan's stomach dropped. The basement. No one went into the basement. It stored old machinery and outdated supplies. It was always locked, always. But when she looked down the far aisle, she saw it. The heavy steel door, standing wide open, light flickering from inside. "Megan, breathe," she whispered to herself. A loud crash echoed from inside the basement, followed by a dragging sound. Something scraped across the concrete floor. Slow, deliberate. Then the footsteps came again. Only now they were running. Heavy, pounding steps, charging straight toward her. Megan sprinted toward the office, but the lights above her shut off sequentially. Pop, 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 like something was following the darkness behind her. She dove inside the small break room, slammed the door, and locked it. Her breath came in sharp, panicked gasps. She pressed her back against the door and listened. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. Slow, measured knocks on the other side, followed by a whisper. Not human. Deep, raspy, grinding like metal scraping bone. "Me," She slapped her hands over her mouth to hold in a sob. The handle shook violently, then stopped. She waited 30 seconds, a minute, 2, nothing. She slowly reached for the handle, turned it, and cracked the door open. The warehouse was empty, too empty. She crept toward the exit door. If she could reach her car, she'd be safe. But halfway there, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Footprints. Wet, dark footprints leading away from the basement, as if something had walked through water or blood. The footprints were massive, not human, and they stopped in the middle of the aisle, vanished, as if whatever made them simply lifted itself off the ground. Megan backed away slowly, shaking uncontrollably. Her phone buzzed again. Final notice. Look up. Her breath froze. Slowly, painfully slowly, she lifted her head. High in the rafters, clinging to the steel beams, was the shadowy figure. Elongated limbs wrapped around the metal like a spider. Its white, lidless eyes stared directly down at her. Then it dropped. Megan screamed, and the lights exploded into darkness. She never made it to her car. The next morning, the day shift manager found the warehouse completely normal, except for one thing. Megan's clipboard lying on the floor, with a message scratched deep into the metal backplate. Night shift is not safe. Don't forget to subscribe for more scary stories. Thank you for watching.